There's a reason you're exhausted that has nothing to do with how busy you are. You're tired because every day, a little more of you gets eaten, not by strangers, by people you've given unlimited access to. The friend who always needs to talk but disappears when it's your turn. The partner who loves your loyalty but never protects you with the same intensity. The coworker who knows you'll stay late if they just really need a favor. On paper, you're the good one. In practice, you're the easiest one to use. At some point, every person like you hits a quiet breaking point. Not a meltdown, not a dramatic scene. It's smaller and far more dangerous than that. It's the moment you feel something and you go cold while your mouth is still saying, "Yeah, it's fine. Don't worry about it." You know it isn't fine, but you say it anyway. You've been trained to keep the temperature in the room comfortable, even while you're burning. Trained to make sure no one feels guilty, even when they deserve to. Trained to explain, until your throat is raw and your boundaries don't even remember what they were. If a Machiavellian mind looked at your life, it wouldn't see kindness first. It would see leverage. It would see where you leak it. Every time you forgive without changing anything, you leak leverage. Every time you laugh off disrespect, you leak leverage. Every time you chase someone who's already walking away, you don't just leak leverage, you donate it. You tell yourself you're being understanding. Let's be honest, half the time you're just terrified of being abandoned. That's the real split inside you. There are two versions of you living in the same body. The first is the one the world is used to, the explainer, the fixer, the one who stays up late replaying conversations and writing apology texts and drafts that start with, "Hey, I just wanted to clear the air." That version assumes if they can just show people how pure their intentions are, everything will finally be fair. It never is. The second version is the one you keep suppressing. The one that notices the pattern. The one that watches who only calls you when they're bored or broken. The one that feels disgust, not just hurt, when you realize someone is only kind when they want something. That version isn't soft. It's surgical. It doesn't want revenge. It wants distance. You've been drugging that second version with excuses for years. They didn't mean it. They're just under pressure. I don't want to be the bad guy. You're not afraid of being the bad guy. You're afraid of what will happen when you stop being the easy one. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The world has already made its decision about you. It decided when it realized you will choose peace over your own self-respect. It decided when it realized you'll swallow your anger so no one else has to feel awkward. It decided when it learned you'll break yourself into pieces as long as you can still be called nice. You think you're earning love. You're actually teaching people how far they can push you without losing you. People pay attention to cost, not intentions. If hurting you costs nothing, they'll do it every time it's convenient. That's the moment the good one has to snap, not into screaming. That's still weakness, just louder. I'm talking about a different kind of snap. The kind where you stop arguing, stop justifying, stop sending paragraphs to people who answer with one-word replies. You stop campaigning for a seat at tables that keep showing you you're just the entertainment. You don't announce it. You don't write a long goodbye. You just start auditing where your energy goes like a cold accountant. Who actually shows up when you're not useful? Who respects your no the first time? Who treats your presence like a privilege, not a default setting? Everyone else? Their access drops. Not out of spite, out of self-defense. This is the beginning of ruthlessness, not cruelty, not becoming some cartoon villain. Ruthlessness, in its pure form, is simple. You stop cooperating in your own destruction. You stop negotiating your worth with people who benefit from your confusion. You stop choosing the version of you that shatters every time someone is slightly disappointed. You let that second version of you, the quiet, watchful, unbending one, step forward. And that shift is scary because it threatens every dynamic built on you being the softest person in the room. People will feel it. They'll say you've changed. You have. That's the point. But before you can really hold that new self, you need to understand something deeper, something most good people refuse to look at. This world is not neutral. It does not reward what you think it rewards. It is not randomly breaking you. It's structured in a way that selects for certain traits and punishes others. In the next part, I'm going to show you how that structure actually works, why the shameless rise, why the loud are listened to, why the calculating seem to float while you sink. Once you see the game you're standing inside, you'll understand exactly why the version of you that keeps trying to win with purity alone is doomed to keep losing. You've spent most of your life believing the world is basically fair, just badly managed. If I'm patient, if I'm clear, if I keep showing I'm a good person, eventually people will treat me right. That's the script you were handed. Be decent, work hard, don't rock the boat, and in the long run, things will balance out. Now look around. Who gets promoted at work? The quiet backbone who keeps everything running, or the one who knows how to talk in meetings, delegate the boring parts, and take credit without flinching? Who gets chased in dating? The one available 24/7 or the one who disappears for a day without explanation and somehow becomes 10 times more attractive? Whose opinions control the group? The person who always says, "It's up to you guys, I'm fine with anything." Or the one who says, "Here's what we're doing," like it's already decided? Once you actually pay attention, you see it. This world doesn't reward who's nicest. It rewards who understands pressure, perception, and power. You've been playing a moral game inside a psychological marketplace. In that marketplace, your time, your attention, your emotional energy are all currency. Predators know this. They conserve, they calculate, they invest their energy where it multiplies their influence. Pleasers don't. Pleasers give it away for free and then feel confused when nobody sees it as valuable. Think about how people treat free things. Free samples, free advice, free emotional labor. It's nice. It's appreciated for 5 seconds. And then it's forgotten, because there was no cost. Now think about the people you secretly respect. Not the ones you like, the ones you respect. They all share one trait. Being close to them costs something. Effort, consistency, self-control. You don't just get their time because you want it. There are terms. The world reads that as value. Most good people never see this because they're obsessed with intent. But I'm doing it from a good heart. The world is not measuring your heart. It's measuring your leverage. In any group, formal or informal, a brutal sorting happens under the surface. People subconsciously categorize each other. Who can be pushed? Who will fold if I apply guilt? Who will chase if I pull away? Who will sit there and absorb my stress so I feel lighter afterward? Predators aren't always evil masterminds. Half the time they're just people who learned early that if you push, others will move. If you guilt trip, some will comply. If you act like you're worth more, others will agree just to avoid friction. And where do they test this first? On the softest person in the room. You're the one who says, no, it's okay, I'll take it. You're the one who says, don't worry about it, I understand. You're the one who stays late, forgives quickly, replies fast, and never asks for anything that might make someone else uncomfortable. If Machiavelli walked into your life today, he wouldn't be shocked that you're tired. He'd be shocked you're still surprised. Because from a strategic lens, the pattern is simple. The person who sets the terms gains power. The person who keeps everyone comfortable loses it. The one who can walk away controls the one who is terrified of loss. And here's the part you really don't want to admit. You've been training the predators around you. Every time you tolerate a joke that cuts too deep, you mark yourself as safe to disrespect. Every time you jump to respond to someone who leaves you on red for days, you mark yourself as safe to ignore. Every time you take on extra work without making anyone feel the cost of that decision, you mark yourself as safe to overload. Predators don't need fangs. They just need you to keep announcing that you won't bite. Once you see the world this way, your old explanations start to feel childish. People are just busy. They didn't realize it hurt me. They're not like that deep down. Maybe. But somewhere in their nervous system, they've learned a simple equation. Your comfort is expendable. Their convenience is not. That's how this world is wired. It's not a gentle classroom. It's a hierarchy constantly being negotiated in tiny, invisible moves. Who bends? Who doesn't? Who apologizes first? Who never apologizes at all? You don't have to become a predator to survive here, but you do have to stop behaving like prey. You need to understand that being endlessly reasonable, endlessly available, endlessly forgiving does not raise your value in this environment. It lowers it. It signals you will absorb impact without retaliating. You will explain instead of exiting. You will suffer quietly instead of changing the rules. A Machiavellian mind looks at that and thinks, perfect. That's someone I can lean on. That's someone who will take the hit when things go wrong. That's someone who will stay loyal even when I stop deserving it. That's not a compliment. That's a threat. So before we talk about how to change, you need to really feel this. The world that keeps breaking you is not broken. It's functioning exactly as a power system should. It rewards scarcity, self-command, controlled aggression, and the ability to walk away. It punishes people who advertise their need, their fear, and their desperation to be liked. Painful? Yes. But once you accept it, something important happens. You stop expecting an unfair game to suddenly become fair just because you're tired. The real question becomes, what would someone truly strategic see when they look directly at you? What signals are you sending without realizing it? Where are you giving people the manual for how to use you? Where are you volunteering to be the easiest option to exploit? In the next part, we're going to bring that lens right up to your life. Imagine Machiavelli in modern clothes, standing in the corner of your job, your group chat, your relationship. What would he notice in the way you move, speak, react? Once you see yourself through that eye, you'll understand exactly where your power is leaking out. Picture this. You're at work. There's a meeting, or a group chat, or just a hallway conversation. You think you're just being yourself. If Machiavelli were in the corner, invisible to everyone but you, he wouldn't see random behavior. He'd see a pattern of tells. He'd see the way you rush to fill silence the second it appears, just so no one feels awkward. He'd see how your shoulders drop a little when someone disagrees with you, and you instantly soften your stance. Yeah, I could be wrong. It's just an idea. He'd see you start half your sentences with sorry, as if existing takes up too much space and you need to apologize for it. That's not personality. That's broadcasting. You're telling the whole room, I will move so you don't have to. I will downplay myself so you feel bigger. I will twist myself into whatever keeps things smooth. A strategic mind doesn't hear that as kindness. It hears, here is someone who will always take the step back. Look at your phone habits. The person who answers immediately when certain names pop up, even if you're busy. The one you send long, thoughtful messages to, while they respond with 3 words and a shrug emoji. The way you reread their last text 3 times before you respond because you're terrified of coming off needy or too much. Machiavelli, in modern clothes, would raise an eyebrow at that. Why? Because you're revealing 2 critical pieces of information: what you crave and what you fear. You crave connection, reassurance, some kind of emotional "we're okay." You fear distance, silence, disapproval. Once someone sees that about you, they don't need to be evil to use it. They just have to be selfish. Pull away a little, you chase. Act disappointed in you, you overperform. Hint that you might be upset, you start apologizing before they even ask. You're not being manipulated out of nowhere. You're sending the manual. Think about how you handle conflict. When someone crosses a line, what do you actually do? Not what you fantasize about doing in the shower later. What you do in real time. You soften your voice. You explain your side in detail. You make sure they know you're not attacking them. If they get defensive, you start reassuring them. Somehow, you end up comforting the person who hurt you. To Machiavelli, that's not high emotional intelligence. That's a vulnerability so obvious it might as well be written on your forehead. If you push me and then look a little hurt, I'll fold. He'd see the same thing in your social media. The way you post vague, sad stories hoping a specific person will notice. The way you spill your struggles to people who haven't earned that level of access, just because it feels good to finally be heard by someone, anyone. Oversharing isn't always honesty. Sometimes it's desperation dressed as depth, and desperation is a scent. A person with a predatory streak can smell it instantly. They know they don't have to offer you real safety, they just have to offer you attention. A few intense conversations, a couple of "I really get you" lines, and suddenly they have access to information about your childhood, your heartbreaks, your triggers. If you were Machiavellian, what would you do with that information? You'd know exactly which buttons to push to keep this person from leaving, exactly which wounds to poke to keep them performing. That's what you're handing people, unintentionally, but consistently. You do it with your schedule too. Always free whenever works for you. Always adjusting, always reshuffling, always being the flexible one so nobody ever has to experience the discomfort of hearing you say, "No, that doesn't work for me." You think you're showing you're easygoing. What you're actually showing is, "My time is the cheapest in the room." Here's the part you don't like to hear. None of this is hidden. The people in your life might not have the language for it, but they feel it. They feel that you will tolerate more than others, that you will explain yourself longer, that you will stay after everyone else leaves. So when there's a job nobody wants, a favor nobody wants to ask, an emotional dump nobody else wants to receive, guess who becomes the default? From a distance, Machiavelli wouldn't see a victim. He'd see a pattern of small, constant self-betrayals that advertise you as the safest place to put discomfort. You've trained the world to believe you will always absorb the hit. This isn't about hating yourself for it. It's about finally looking at it without sugarcoating. Because until you can see your own tells this clearly, your nervous laughs, your instant replies, your over-explaining, your obsession with being understood, you can't change anything. You'll keep trying to tweak the surface while the core programming stays the same. A ruthless mind treats this like data, not drama. Where do I always back down? Who do I always chase? Which emotions make me abandon my own standards? Every time you answer those honestly, you've just found another leak in your power. And here's where the real transformation begins. Once you know exactly where you hand people the keys to your emotions, you can start doing something most good people never do. You can use your pain as information. You can use every betrayal, every one-sided relationship, every quiet humiliation as a map of where the old you kept giving yourself away. That's what we're going into next. In the next part, we're going to take all of that pain you've been trying to outrun and flip the script. Instead of letting it keep breaking you, you're going to learn how to turn it into fuel, how to build emotional sovereignty so solid that the same tricks that worked on you for years suddenly stop working forever. You've been treating your pain like a disease you need to get rid of. Distract from it. Numb it. Argue with it. Dress it up in everything happens for a reason and hope that if you're spiritual enough, the hurt will politely evaporate. It won't. Pain doesn't leave because you're good. It leaves because you've extracted what it came to show you. Every brutal thing you've been through carries two possible futures. One where you stay stuck in the story, and one where you steal the lesson and walk away heavier in power, lighter in illusions. The event is the same. The difference is what you do with it. Look back at the biggest hits you've taken. The friend who betrayed you as soon as siding with you became inconvenient. The partner who said you were too much right after draining you dry. The family member who used guilt like a leash every time you tried to step out of your assigned role. You survived all of that, but did you study it? Or did you just survive and rush to move on so you wouldn't have to feel how much it changed you? A Machiavellian mind doesn't move on that fast. It lingers, not in self-pity, in analysis. Who knew they could treat you like that and still have access to you? Where did you ignore your own discomfort when it first showed up? Which belief made you stay far longer than the situation deserved? That's what your pain is actually doing. It's circling the same questions until you either answer them or break from refusing to. Emotional sovereignty starts right there. When you stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and start asking, "What did I allow? What did I believe that made this possible? What part of me needs to die so this never repeats?" That's not victim blaming. That's power reclaiming. The weak stay married to the storyline. They ruined me. They wasted my time. They broke me. And in a way, that's comfortable because it means you never have to change. You just get to be the wounded one forever. The strong use the same story differently. "He ruined me" becomes "I will never overlook that early red flag again." "They wasted my time" becomes "I now charge my time differently." "They broke me" becomes "they showed me exactly where I had no spine." You don't have to forgive what happened. You don't have to pretend it was beautiful. But if you refuse to pull anything sharp out of that wreckage, then the wreckage owns you. It becomes the hidden script running your life while you keep telling people you've moved on. Here's the shift. Stop treating your worst memories like horror films and start treating them like surveillance footage. Rewatch them with a different eye. Not the eye that wants to relive the emotion, but the eye that wants to catch the moment you abandoned yourself. The exact second you laughed off something that hurt. The exact moment you said, "It's probably nothing," when your gut knew it was everything. The exact point where you felt small, but decided it would be dramatic to say so. Those are the frames that matter. That's where your future power lives. This is what most people never do. They either sink into their pain and wear it like an identity, or they outrun it and repeat the same pattern with a new face. You're going to do something different. You're going to use it. Every time you remember how badly it hurt, you get a choice. Let it pull you back into self-pity, or let it harden a rule. I do not explain myself twice. I don't stay where I'm tolerated. I don't negotiate my boundaries with people who benefit from them disappearing. Say it however fits you, but understand what you're actually building. A core that doesn't swing wildly with every emotion. That's emotional sovereignty, not being numb, being in charge. You're still going to feel everything. You're just not going to obey everything you feel. You can feel the urge to text them and still not do it. You can feel the sting of being misunderstood and still not over-explain. You can feel the ache of missing someone and still not crawl back to a place that almost destroyed you. That gap between feeling and action, that's where self-mastery lives. That's the part of you Machiavelli would respect. Not your suffering, your discipline. And here's something you need to hear. The day you stop fearing pain, people lose one of their main weapons against you. Guilt stops working. Silent treatment stops working. Threats of leaving stop working. Because you've already sat with worse alone and survived. You've already experienced the bottom and learned to breathe there. Once you know you can rebuild yourself from ash, you stop begging anyone else to keep you intact. That's when you become unpredictable, not because you're chaotic, but because you're no longer easily steered by fear. People can't just push the rejection button or the shame button and expect you to dance. You felt those things fully. You used them. And now, they don't control your steering wheel. I don't run from pain anymore. I harvest it. Let that be one of your private lines. Not for social media. For you. Because from this point on, every time life hits you, you're going to ask a different question. What is this teaching me about my standards, my illusions, my weak spots? You don't have to like the lesson. You just have to refuse to waste it. Once this becomes your default, you stop being emotionally breakable. Do you still hurt? Of course. But the hurt is a forge now, not a grave. And when your core shifts like that, something interesting happens on the outside. You no longer move the same. You're less quick to say yes, less available for casual dumping, less eager to jump into roles that drain you. People feel that without you explaining it. The same ones who used to lean on you without limit start feeling something they're not used to around you. Resistance. That's where we're heading next. Now that you're learning to use your pain as a weapon instead of a wound, the next step is to draw the outer line, your edges. The way you handle distance, access, and boundaries so that the world doesn't just sense you've changed inside, it collides with that change when it tries to cross the old lines. Up until now, everything we've talked about has been inside work. How you think, how you process pain, how you stop handing your emotions to anyone with a sad story and a familiar face. That's your core, but the world doesn't interact with your core directly. It interacts with your edges. Your edges are where people feel you, where they can touch you, ask you for things, push you, test you. If your edges are soft, it doesn't matter how strong you are inside. People will still walk right through you to get what they want. You already know what soft edges feel like. They feel like saying yes when your whole body tenses. They feel like sitting on a call you didn't want to take, listening to someone spiral for an hour while you stare at the clock and tell yourself, they need me. They feel like letting someone who hurt you back in because you're afraid of looking petty for holding your line. Machiavelli wouldn't call that kindness. He'd call it poor border control. Think of yourself like a territory. In any territory, there are gates, checkpoints, and walls. Some people are allowed in easily. Some need to be vetted. Some are kept outside no matter how loud they shout. A weak ruler doesn't bother to enforce any of that. Anyone can wander in, set up camp, drain resources, and leave a mess when they're bored. That's how most good people live. Just an open border. You say things like, I'm always here if you need anything. And you mean it. You answer late-night messages from people who never ask how you're doing in daylight. You let old flings reappear out of nowhere with I miss you and act like the months of silence never happened. You let coworkers dump their work on you because you're so good at it. Then you wonder why you feel emptied out all the time. Here's the shift. Your time, your attention, your emotional capacity are not public property. They're resources. Once you start treating them like resources, your edges harden. That doesn't mean you turn into a brick wall. It means you start being selective. When someone has shown you repeated disrespect, access shrinks. You don't answer every message. You don't keep explaining what they already know they're doing. You don't give them the front row seat in your life just because they've been around a long time. When someone only shows up in crisis, you stop being their emergency room. You can care without always being available. You can say, "I can't talk right now," and not follow it with a 3-page apology. When your boss or coworker tries to pass off their responsibilities onto you, you stop saying, "Yeah, I'll just handle it," and start saying, "That doesn't fall under my role. I've already got X and Y on my plate." Calm. Factual. No explanation essay. Every time you do this, something subtle and powerful happens. You increase the cost of misusing you. That's all boundaries really are. Not slogans, not inspirational quotes. They're price tags. You disrespect me? The price is distance. You lie to me? The price is losing access to my trust. You constantly drain me? The price is that I stop being the person you come to when you need a fix. You don't have to scream about it. You don't have to write a manifesto. You just quietly raise the cost. The people will feel it. Those who've gotten used to the discount version of you will be offended. They'll call you cold, distant, selfish. They will absolutely try to guilt you back into being the unlimited, open bar of emotional labor you used to be. Let them. Their opinion is not your border police. The people who were never here to use you will react differently. They'll notice your edges and respect them. They'll ask, "Hey, is this a good time?" They'll accept no without sulking. They won't freak out when you're not instantly available, because they weren't here just to consume. Edges repel parasites and attract equals. And yes, it will feel wrong at first. If you've spent years proving your worth by being accessible, saying no will feel like violence. You'll feel the urge to explain your boundaries to death so nobody thinks badly of you. Here's where you need to be ruthless. You don't owe a full courtroom defense every time you protect yourself. A simple, "I'm not available for that" is enough. A simple, "That doesn't work for me" is enough. If someone needs a multi-slide presentation to respect a basic line, they're not confused. They're testing. "I don't live on call anymore." Let that be one of your new internal rules, because the truth is, people can only drain what you keep putting within reach. When you stop leaving your emotional power on the table for anyone to grab, users have 2 choices: step up or step out. Both are good outcomes. Notice something else too. The more you conserve your energy, the sharper your presence becomes. You're no longer spread thin across 100 obligations you never wanted in the first place. When you do show up, you're actually there. You're focused. You're not secretly resentful. And that creates a different kind of aura. People feel they can't just stroll in and waste your time. They sit up straighter. They choose their words more carefully. They know crossing your line won't be brushed aside with, "It's okay. Don't worry about it." You've stopped offering yourself as the path of least resistance. That alone will change your entire social ecosystem. But there's another layer to edges that most people miss. It's not just who gets in and how long they stay. It's what they get to see once they're there. You can have strong boundaries and still leak power if you constantly explain yourself, reveal every emotion, and narrate your every move. The next move in this game is not just controlling access, but controlling information. You've started to fortify your gates. Next, we're going to step inside the walls and deal with visibility, how to use silence, mystery, and selective sharing so nobody, no matter how close they stand, can easily read your playbook. You've started guarding your gates. Now we have to deal with what leaks through the windows, because even with stronger boundaries, you can still hand people way too much power if you keep telling them everything. What you feel, what you fear, what you're planning, what you hope they'll do. Most of your damage hasn't come from who you let in. It's come from how much of yourself you put on display once they got there. You've probably been taught that openness is always good. Communication is everything. Be transparent. Say what you feel. Nice slogans. Terrible strategy when you're surrounded by people who don't all have your best interests in mind. A Machiavellian mind understands something most good people never learn. Information is leverage. The one who knows more about the other person's inner world wins. Think about how you move through your life right now. When you're anxious, you text paragraphs. When you sense someone pulling away, you send long explanations of what you meant, what you need, how you're scared to lose them. When you're hurt, you write novels trying to be clear so nobody misreads you. You think you're building connection. You're actually exposing your wiring. You're telling people exactly which compliments calm you down, exactly which accusations make you spiral, exactly what you'll do when they threaten to leave, exactly how much discomfort you can tolerate before you break and start chasing. To a selfish person, that's a gold mine. They don't even need to be especially smart. All they have to do is file those details away and press the right buttons later. This is why some people seem to have a remote control for your emotions. You gave it to them one honest conversation at a time. I'm not telling you to become a stone wall. I'm telling you to stop narrating your entire inner life like a live podcast no one paid for. Pay attention to who you overshare with. How often do you find yourself spilling your deepest fears to someone who hasn't actually earned that level of access? Just because they asked one or two probing questions and seemed interested? How often do you feel guilty if you don't explain why you're quieter, why you're busy, why you're not in the mood? That guilt is your training. You were trained to believe that if someone has feelings about you, you owe them a full report. You don't. Silence is not always avoidance. Sometimes it's respect for yourself, for your process, for the fact that not everyone deserves a guided tour of what's happening inside your head. Look at the people you quietly respect or fear a little. They all have something in common. You don't quite know what they're thinking. You don't know exactly where you stand. You don't know how they'll react in every scenario. That uncertainty makes you careful. Now flip it. The people you feel most comfortable taking for granted are usually the ones who have told you everything. You know their triggers, their patterns, their weak spots, their insecurities, their schedule. They're an open book, and open books rarely feel dangerous. If Machiavelli were coaching you today, he wouldn't say never speak. He'd say, speak with intention. Share in layers. Reveal slowly. Let people prove they can handle small truths before you hand them big ones. You don't have to explain why you're setting a boundary. You don't have to send a thesis on why you need space. I'm not available is a complete sentence. So is, I'm not comfortable with that. The compulsion to add 20 more lines is not clarity. It's fear of being seen as the bad guy, and that fear is what keeps you predictable. In a conversation, try this. When someone throws a little jab or tries to corner you into saying more than you want, don't rush to fill the silence. Let it hang. Notice how quickly they start backpedaling, joking, over-explaining. Your quiet forced them to sit with their own behavior. Silence is pressure. Mystery is pressure. And pressure, used correctly, is power. When you stop telling everyone what you're going to do next, people have to guess. When you stop broadcasting your every thought, they can't pre-plan their moves around your reactions. When you stop announcing that you're hurt, you give them nothing to feed on. They only have their own conscience to grapple with. Uncomfortable, right? Good. That discomfort you feel when you don't explain yourself is the exact muscle you need to build. Because the more you can tolerate being misunderstood without trying to fix it, the harder it becomes to manipulate you. I don't need you to understand me to be sure of myself. Let that line sit in the back of your mind the next time you're tempted to send that long, trembling explanation. As you tighten your information flow, people in your life will respond in interesting ways. Some will lean in, respectfully, and try to get to know you more deeply over time. They'll accept your slower pace, your shorter answers, your decision not to bleed your soul out on command. Others will panic. They'll accuse you of being distant, passive-aggressive, fake. What they're really saying is, I don't know how to control you anymore. That's a good sign. You are not building a cage of secrecy. You're building a filter. Instead of everyone having full backstage access to your mind, most people get the lobby. A few, who consistently show respect, patience, and reciprocity, can earn their way further in. This is how you become hard to read without becoming hard to love. And once your edges are firm and your inner workings are no longer public property, there's one more place where good people keep losing the game. Allegiance. Who you align with, who you ride for, who you would burn for if they asked. Because even if you master silence and boundaries, if your loyalty is still blind and unconditional, you'll end up rebuilding your prison with different bricks. So next, we're going to talk about alliances. How to stop giving loyalty like a gift basket and start giving it like a weapon, sharp, deliberate, and only when it serves the life you're actually trying to build. Loyalty is probably the most beautiful thing about you, and the most dangerous. You're the one who stays when everyone else quietly disappears. The one who defends people when they're not in the room. The one who forgives things you'd never do to anyone, because they're my friend, they're family. They've been there for me before. On the surface, that sounds noble. But if we strip the romance away and look at it through a cold, strategic lens, there's a harsher truth. You haven't been loyal. You've been owned. Ask yourself this: how many people in your life could call you right now, after ignoring you for months, and you would still pick up because that's just how they are? How many people have you kept defending long after they stopped defending you? How many ride or die connections would leave you walking if it ever came down to their comfort versus your survival? That's not loyalty. That's self-abandonment with a pretty name. A Machiavellian mind doesn't give devotion as a personality trait. It gives allegiance as a calculated move. It asks, if I tie my energy, my reputation, my emotional life to this person, what do I gain? What do I risk? What do they actually do when the pressure hits? You, on the other hand, were taught to think loyalty is pure when it ignores those questions. Real ones don't keep score. If you love someone, you don't think about what you're getting back. That sounds poetic. It also happens to be the exact mindset abusers, users, and chronic takers depend on. Because if you never evaluate, you never adjust, you just keep giving. You stay at jobs that would replace you in a week because they gave me a chance. You cling to childhood friends who've outgrown respect for you because we've known each other forever. You keep pouring into partners who only love the version of you that serves their needs because we've been through so much together. Here's a brutal filter. Imagine you lost everything tomorrow. Status, money, usefulness. Who is still there when you're no longer convenient? If the list is small, your loyalty has been a bad investment. Let's be clear. Ruthlessness does not mean you trust no one, love no one, walk through life alone and paranoid. That's just another prison. Ruthlessness means you stop offering full, unquestioning allegiance to people who have never shown you they can hold it. Your loyalty should be earned, graded, and revocable. Earned, meaning there's a track record, not words, not promises, not trauma bonding, actual behavior over time. How do they treat you when there's nothing in it for them? How do they speak about you when you're not around? Do they protect your name the way you protect theirs? Graded, meaning not everyone gets the same level. Most people should never have access to the version of you that would bleed for someone. Some people get a handshake. Some get a favor. A very few, over years, might get the part of you that would go to war for them. You don't start at the top shelf. Revocable, meaning if the reality changes and your loyalty is allowed to change with it. You are not a statue commissioned by their better days. If they betray you, repeatedly disrespect you, or show that they would drop you the moment it's no longer convenient, you're not fake for pulling back. You're late. I don't owe lifetime allegiance to temporary behavior. Let that sentence live where your old ride or die fantasy used to sit. Think about the people you admire who actually move like they have power. They rarely broadcast loyalty. They broadcast standards. They don't announce, "I would do anything for you," because they know anything includes things that would kill them. They don't attach their identity to being the loyal one, because they understand that in the wrong hands, that label is a leash. If Machiavelli watched how you choose sides, he'd see the same leaks he saw everywhere else. You cling because you're afraid of being alone. You stay because you're afraid of being the bad guy. You support people publicly who privately hollow you out because you're more afraid of being called disloyal than you are of betraying yourself. That's backward. Your first loyalty is supposed to be to your principles and your future self, not to whatever person shouts, "But I thought you were different," the loudest. From now on, you start asking different questions before you offer anything that looks like full allegiance. If this turned ugly, would they shield me or sacrifice me? If I stopped being useful, would they still claim me? If I needed them at my lowest, would they show up with the same intensity I've been showing up with? If the honest answer is no, your loyalty stays on a short leash. That doesn't mean you're fake with them. It means you stop giving them the power to drag your life down with theirs. You can be kind, professional, even warm, and still keep your core untethered. You become the one who can walk away from any alliance that starts to demand your self-respect as payment. And here's what will happen when you start doing this. Some people will feel it and adjust. They'll step up, match your respect, and your connection will actually deepen because it's no longer based on you overgiving and them overtaking. Others will feel it and label you disloyal, cold, heartless. Let them howl. People who benefited from your blind loyalty will always call your clarity betrayal. You're not betraying them. You're finally refusing to betray yourself, but I know what's already forming in the back of your mind. If I do all this, if I pull my loyalty back, if I enforce boundaries, if I become quieter and more selective, am I just becoming one of the bad ones? Am I turning into the very kind of person that hurt me? That fear is exactly what's kept you weak. So that's what we deal with next. We're going to draw the line between predatory cruelty and protective ruthlessness, between becoming calculated and becoming corrupt. Because the goal here is not to murder your conscience. It's to give your conscience a spine, so you can move through this ruthless world with power and still be able to look yourself in the mirror. You've probably felt it creeping in already. That little voice asking, if I start doing this, if I pull back my loyalty, tighten my boundaries, stop explaining myself, am I becoming one of them? Am I turning into the same kind of ruthless person that hurt me? That fear is exactly what's been used to keep you harmless. Because as long as you equate strength with evil, you will always choose weakness to feel like a good person. You will hand your power to people with fewer morals but more courage, and then wonder why they're the ones calling the shots. Let's make something very clear. There is a difference between being ruthless and being cruel. Cruelty enjoys causing pain. It hurts for sport. It lies, manipulates, and destroys just to feel bigger. That's not what we're building. Ruthlessness, the way we're talking about it, is something else. It's the refusal to sacrifice yourself on the altar of other people's comfort. It's the decision to enforce reality even when it disappoints people. It's the willingness to do what your conscience says is right for you, even when your conditioning is screaming, "They won't like this." You are not killing your conscience. You're giving it teeth. Think of your code like this. Your heart decides your direction. Your strategy decides your method. Your direction is still clean. You don't wake up wanting to scam people, humiliate them, or break them for fun. You want a life that's fair to you, where people you care about are treated well and you aren't quietly bleeding out in the background. The problem was never your heart. The problem was that your heart had no enforcement arm. If Machiavelli were sitting with you, he wouldn't say, "Stop being kind." He'd say, "Stop being kind in ways that destroy you. Stop forgiving with no consequence. Stop giving with no limit. Stop telling yourself you're better than them because you endure more than any human should." Your code needs a few non-negotiables. You don't hit first. You don't trick people who trust you. You don't weaponize secrets from those who were vulnerable in good faith. You don't play with emotions just to feel powerful. But you also don't stay where you're being slowly killed. You don't reward disrespect with more access. You don't let someone keep stabbing you just because you understand why they picked up the knife. If that sounds harsh, good. Your old code was too soft to keep you alive in the world you're actually in. A healthy ruthlessness might look like this in real life. You still show up for people you love, but you stop rearranging your entire life for people who would barely adjust their schedule for you. You still listen, but you no longer allow the same person to dump on you every week without ever changing anything. You still forgive, but instead of pretending nothing happened, you quietly downgrade their access and treat them according to their track record, not your fantasies. You stop trying to win moral points for being the one who suffers the most. Here's something you need to burn into your mind. It is not ethically superior to be powerless. Being powerless doesn't make you pure. It just makes you convenient. The most dangerous people in your life were never stronger than you in worth. They were just more willing to use strategy while you were busy defending your innocence. They studied what worked. They enforced what they wanted. They weren't afraid to be seen as selfish if it protected their interests. You're not here to become them. You're here to stop being their favorite target. So you build a code. I don't initiate harm, but I don't absorb it indefinitely either. I don't manipulate the innocent, but I refuse to be manipulated by the guilty. I don't play games, but I will absolutely walk away without explaining myself if someone treats me like I'm disposable. This isn't pettiness. This is alignment. Your actions finally match the value you claim to have. You might still feel guilt the first few times you enforce this. You'll say no and your chest will tighten. You'll pull back from someone toxic and hear the echo of old programming. You're heartless. You've changed. You think you're better than everyone. That's when you lean on your code. Ask yourself, am I violating my own principles or just someone else's expectations? If your conscience is clear and only their entitlement is loud, you're fine. Let them be uncomfortable. That discomfort is them meeting the real you for the first time. Machiavelli would respect a person who can say, "I won't start the war, but if you bring one to my door, I will not be your casualty." That's the energy you're moving into. Not loud, not performative, quiet, calibrated, and dangerous to disrespect. And here's the paradox: the stronger your code, the softer your heart can actually be. When you know you can cut someone off, you don't have to walk around rigid and paranoid. When you trust yourself to leave situations that rot you from the inside, you're not constantly scanning for threats. When you believe you will protect yourself when the line is crossed, you can relax more with people who deserve it. Kindness with no code turns you into a victim. Kindness with a ruthless code turns you into someone people don't want to lose. You're not meant to stay in theory with this. A code is only real once it touches your daily life, your texts, your calendar, your tone when you say no, your silence when you're being baited into old patterns. So now the question becomes, how does someone like you, heart intact, code in place, edges sharp, actually move through the world? What does it look like when you walk into your job, your family gatherings, your relationships, your social media, as someone who cannot be guilted, cornered, or broken the way you used to be? That's where we're going next. We're going to step out of the theory and into the scenes, how you handle tests, how you respond to chaos, and how you carry yourself like someone the world can no longer play with, only respect, fear losing, or both. So let's put all of this into motion. Imagine tomorrow morning. Same alarm, same job, same people. Nothing outside has changed yet. The only difference is that you're no longer walking in as the breakable version of you. You get to the office, or you open your laptop, and the first test comes fast like it always does. A coworker slides a quick favor your way that somehow adds an extra hour to your day. Old you would have smiled, said yes, and quietly resented them later. Now, you feel the reflex to agree rise in your chest, and then you don't obey it. You say, "I've already got a full load today. I'm not able to take that on." Calm, unapologetic. You don't fill the silence. You let them deal with their own inconvenience. You walk away and your heart is pounding, not from fear, but from something new, self-respect with teeth. Later, someone makes a slick comment at your expense in front of others. Old you would have laughed it off to keep things light. The untouchable you just looks at them, lets the weight of the moment sit, and says, "I don't find that funny." No anger, no speech, just a line. They shrug, maybe joke, maybe backpedal. That's their problem. You don't soften it for them. You don't follow with nervous laughter to make them comfortable. You let the discomfort do what it's supposed to do. Teach. This is what untouchable looks like in small, ordinary scenes. Not dramatic revenge arcs. Just hundreds of tiny decisions where you choose your code over your conditioning. In your relationships, it's the same. The person who only reaches out when they're lonely sends another late night, "Hey, stranger" message. Old you would have answered instantly, because the hit of attention felt like oxygen. The new you sees it, feels the temptation, and doesn't rush. Maybe you don't respond at all. Maybe you respond 12 hours later with the same energy they give you. Not to play games, but to match reality instead of your fantasies about them. Their access is no longer a given. It's calibrated to their behavior, not your hunger. Someone close to you throws a guilt bomb. "Wow, you've really changed. You used to be there for me more." Old you would have launched into explanations, listing every time you were there, trying to prove you're still good. The untouchable you says, "I have less to give to things that drain me. I'm not going back to that." And then you stop talking. If they care about you, they'll adjust. If they only care about what you provide, they'll be offended. Either way, you don't crawl backwards to keep them comfortable. You don't flinch every time someone is slightly unhappy with you. You've been through worse pain on your own and survived. Their disappointment is not your god anymore. Out in public, in your family, in your friend groups, your energy shifts quietly. You're not the loudest voice in the room. You don't have to be. You're the one who isn't scrambling. You listen more. You talk less. You watch who interrupts you, who oversteps, who assumes you'll adjust. When they hit your edges, they feel it, not because you explode, but because they actually meet a wall for once instead of a sponge. People start to feel something they can't name. They can't quite predict you. They can't quite read how far they can go. They know pushing you too far has a cost now, and that cost isn't your meltdown, it's your absence. You don't announce when you're done. You just stop participating in the same tired cycles. No big speeches, no drama. Just exits. This is what being untouchable actually is. Not that nothing can hurt you. You're still human. You still feel. It's that nothing can own you. Your mood is no longer on a leash held by other people's approval. Your sense of worth is no longer up for negotiation with whoever happens to disapprove of your standards. Your future is no longer quietly decided by people who benefit from you staying small, soft, and scared. A Machiavellian mind in your corner would look at this version of you and finally nod. Not because you've become cruel, but because you've become expensive. Mishandling you is no longer a free experience. Access to you is no longer automatic. Your kindness still exists, but now it sits behind a gate your old self never locked. And the irony is, the more untouchable you become, the deeper your connections can actually go, with the few who are real. Because you're no longer scattering yourself across people who treat you like background noise. You're present with those who show up with the same weight, the same respect, the same willingness to protect what's being built. You went from being the person everyone could lean on to being the person people don't want to lose. That's a very different kind of good. From here on, every room you step into, you carry this quiet statement inside you. I don't break for anyone's comfort. I bend for no one's manipulation. I belong to myself first. If you want to lock that in, say it out loud, even if it's just in your head right now. I belong to myself first, and if this hit you, do the simplest thing. Like the video so it doesn't get buried, and subscribe so you don't forget this version of you just met.